The suspected drunk driver accused of hitting and killing two Nevada State Police troopers will plead guilty. Jamarcus Williams was charged with 2 counts of deadly DUI after hitting the troopers on the shoulder of the I-15 last November. They were out of their patrol vehicle at the time, assisting another drunk driver who was sleeping in his car. Police found Williams after the crash. They say that he showed signs of impairment and admitted to having 2 shots of vodka at the Palms. Williams' public defender says that his client will plead guilty to 2 counts of deadly DUI in exchange for other charges being dropped against him. He is set to enter that plea deal on April 25th.